Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in again. I am going to go over a video on the Frontier here today. If you're new, this is my 2023 Frontier Pro-4X. We have our Dobinson lift and our new wheels and tire setup on here, plus a few other goodies. So if you are new, you feel free to go back and check out those videos once you've watched this one. And if you're following along, hopefully this video is something you've been waiting for, because I'm going to go over exactly what I did to fit the bigger tires on the front. Now, we have the Dobinson IMS lift kit, front and rear, full suspension lift. It is the heavy duty version, heavy front, heavy leafs in the rear. I'll go over some more on that in another video, but stance wise, that's what you're looking at. And then of course, for our wheel and tire setup, we have some 285 7017 Mickey Thompson Baja Boss tires and Black Rhino Chamber 17 wheels. Now, with these wheels, they are a 0mm offset. So if you're following along on some of these groups on Facebook and stuff like I do, you may see some people putting bigger tires on their truck and they don't have to trim anything really here. Because what it is, when you go a bigger size, now we're lifted as well, keep that in mind, but for these specific trucks, the Frontier, the lift is not so much important as the offset of the wheels. The stock wheels, I believe, are a plus 30 or 33. I can't remember the exact number. I think it's 30. And because we're going 0, the offset is what makes your bigger tires run into the truck more so than whether you're lifted or not. That's why if you're watching some or following some of these groups on Facebook and whatever, you'll see some people have this same size tire, but it fits. No trimming. They do the melt mod. I'll explain what that is in a second. And they say, yep, there you go. It fits. They've got pictures, whatever the case may be, and they don't rub. With a 0mm offset rim, you will rub 100%. Doesn't matter how lifted you are, whether you are or are not lifted, you are going to rub with a 0mm offset rim. Doesn't necessarily have to be these specific rims. Any rim, if it is 0mm offset, you're going to rub, you're going to have to trim, and that is going to be what I'll show you in this video, exactly what I've done. Now it's not 100% complete, but it's good enough for now, so let's get down and show you exactly what I did. All right, so of course it's a little bit hard to see. It's dirty, it's wet, it's dark, but I'm gonna do my best to show you guys what I did exactly. So what we're looking at, this is the front of the vehicle, driver's side. On your fender flare, you have 3 screws holding this thing on. What I did is, now I went a little bit hardcore because what we did is we actually lifted the front tire up as far as we could. We threw some blocks under there, dropped it on the ground, kind of to simulate as if you were off-road, because I wanted to see where this thing exactly went when it was flexed. So we found that it was just being a pain in the butt, and a lot of people do what they call the melt mod. Now, I have to still do that. I haven't done it yet, so it does still rub a little bit just on the bottom, not much, because I cut a lot of this off. And what I mean by a lot is this. A lot of people just melt this. You can see how it has a bump there in the middle. I decided, and keep in mind this hole, I'll get to that in a second. So what people do is they heat that, because what this is it basically went in here like so. And as you can see while I'm holding it there, just how close the wheel is. So when you were to turn and your wheel comes back this way, it hits there. But you can see this has a bunch of flex behind it. So what I have to do still, and what you will have to do, is heat it up. I recommend getting in there and probably going just almost not quite to the top of the tire, but kind of where the cutout comes and you start to go straight down. So heat it up, get a heat gun and a block of wood or whatever you can and push this, because you can see it's hollow behind there. So you heat this up, you push it back, hold it until it cools, and that actually holds it away from your wheel. That's what they call the heat mod. Now, before you can do that, especially with 0mm offset and this big of tire, there's a little bracket under there. And that bracket is actually what went into this hole. It's just a little Christmas tree clip, held it onto there. And I don't know if you can really see it, but it was right here. And we ended up just folding it. I didn't cut it off, I just hit it with a hammer and folded it backwards in there. So now doing that, you don't end up with a sharp edge here. This is rounded. You can see I can run my finger up and down along there. It's not going to cut you. It's nice and smooth because that bracket that used to come out as an L like this is now just folded into the truck. There's space back here, same as where this would get flexed back when you do the heat mod. So what was happening when we pushed this out of the way, first of all, but when we flexed this thing as if it was off-road and you're going on some crazy rocks or whatever the case may be, when we flexed it, it was still hitting that spot. And when we pushed it out of the way, it was still slightly rubbing in an area. So that's why I just decided, just chop it off. Chop the bottom off. You don't have to worry, because I don't know if you can really see here, but the dirt, you can kind of see where the tire was rubbing. From here all the way over to there. It rubbed this whole spot and it just kind of flattened this part out as it was turning back and forth. Now, the front doesn't hit. Not as bad. It's not as close, or not as bad. It's not as close to the wheel when you have these on. So it doesn't hit the front. I haven't had any issues up there. Once I get it actual off-road, if it starts to hit, I'll make another video and update you guys. But as for right now, I don't see it being an issue. And then, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, these 3 screws. This fender flare also, because the fender liner goes behind the flare, so you're hitting the liner, it was hitting the flare. Other thing, this is the PRO-4X. It did have the mud flaps. Those are gone. They ain't gonna work. They're not coming back. Take them off. It's gonna rub. But what we did is you got 1, 2, 3 screws holding this on. What I tried to do, and I may have to trim this a little more, once again, once I get it all said and done and off-road, I can really test it, see how it rubs, because right now you can see I've got only maybe 3/4 of an inch, maybe a 1/2 inch in here. There's not much room, but again, you can push that back and you'll easily be an inch, a little over an inch of clearance. But when the tire turns this way, you get closer over here where you don't have any flex. So we had to cut the fender, or the fender flare. So I trimmed it here, and then underneath, it's hard to see, but I actually cut the body of the truck. Right here, straight across, kind of went up a little bit, maybe up to here or so. Straight across, kind of from that bolt, down towards the inside of the truck. And you'll see, I actually kept the piece to show you guys too. This is what we chopped off. That little yellow clip there, that is what held the bottom of your mud flap, and the bottom, there was 1 extra screw in the bottom of the fender flare. So this piece sat kind of like so, like that in there. And again, as you can see, with this corner being so far out, you're definitely going to hit it when you turn, when the wheel gets straightened out. So what we did is, again, I cut the flare so I could see what we were doing. And then I just went on an angle, just enough to clear that hole and straight down into the corner, clean it up so you don't have any rough edges, spray it a little bit with some paint, because this is metal, you can see here in the light, it will rust. You don't want to start rusting out your truck. Spray it just to protect it. And again, I went a little hardcore on this. You don't have to quite go this bad, but I don't want to add on the lift and the big tires and then have to worry about everything rubbing and, you know, damaging the truck when I take her off road, when it's looking like it's a beast ready to go off road, and then you just go out there, you run into a lot of trouble. And especially, of course, with a metal piece, if your tires start rubbing on that and it gets really good at hooking on it. This all has rounded corners, but at the end of the day, if it starts rubbing on this, you're going to start chewing up your new tires, And not only that, you're going to start ripping the body and stuff off of the truck anyways. So you might as well cut it, make it work from the start, and then you can go from there. So that's the work we did in the front of the truck. And I know in the video it's kind of hard to tell what I'm talking about, but pop your wheel off, just take a look under there, watch the video and kind of look at your truck at the same time, and you'll see it's pretty simple. It's easy to see once you get it right there in front of you. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But for the back, now that we're moving on to the back side, here, you don't have to worry about anything. These tires fit perfectly. You can see you got 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches in the front. The front rear mud flap stays on, and as well as the back. The back rear stays on as well. And same idea, you probably got close to 2 inches of space there. So you won't have any worry about rubbing in the back. This thing flexed up as well. You can see if you look at your wheel and you kind of follow it straight upwards, there's nothing there all the way up until, like, you know, your tire would be popping out the bed before it starts hitting the body of your truck. So the rear, you shouldn't have anything to worry about. And again, should just fit. You don't have to take anything off. It's literally just pull the stock tire off, put the bigger ones on, and you're all set. So there you have it, guys. Like I said, a little bit of trimming involved. If you're worried about rust and stuff like that, maybe don't go so hardcore. But then again, don't order a 0mm offset wheel because you're going to run into issues. You can get the wheels, you might not be able to do such a beefy tire, and you kind of have to, you know, Mickey Mouse it, kind of play with some other sizing and stuff, and hopefully it works for you. As for me, I'm up here in Canada. We get cold, they salt the you-know-what out of everything. It's going to rust. Doesn't matter what you do, whether it's stock 100% or whether you chop everything out of this thing, it's going to rust. I'm not worried about it. I'm going to go out, enjoy the truck. It's not going to rust fast enough for me to worry about. And you know what? If it does, so be it. Just gives me something to deal with later. We can chop it out, fix it up, and deal with that when the time comes. But for now, if you're doing a Dobinson lift, it's roughly a 3-inch, a little more on the back, a little less on the front. We do have the weight of the bumper on the front, which pulls the front down, lifts the back up. So we'll call it a 3-inch lift all around. Then of course the 285s, you gain about another inch just with the bigger wheels. So you're looking at about a 4-inch lift. And if you're looking at this sort of thing for your truck, again, it's not so much the lift, it's more the offset. If you can get a wheel that's closer offset to stock, it's going to fit a lot better. But of course, with the 0mm offset, you get the stance. The front wheels are turned, but you can see on the back, they just poke maybe about 1 inch, a little over 1 inch out the sides. So that's the stance I was going for. And again, for me, if I have to chop it a little bit, so be it. I'm not worried. It's not the end of the world. It looks sweet. When we take it out into the bush, it's going to work like it should. And I'm not going to have to deal with all that other worries out there when you're out having some fun. So hopefully this video helped you out. Like and subscribe if it did. If you're new to the channel, go check out the old videos. And if you got any questions or you need more clarification on anything in this video, drop a comment down below and I'll get back to you. Thanks for watching, everybody.